What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Event Masters. This is the show where every single week we transform you from an event prof to an event master. And we do that by bringing in some of the best in the world to teach you everything they know. This week's no different. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the show. Event Masters. You need to listen to this if you want to throw bigger and better events. Learn how to monetize and land bigger racks. Yeah, this is where you can learn how to do that. Event Masters.
Welcome. Wait, where's my cohort? There he is. What's up, sir?
Hey, you almost forgot me.
Kelsey didn't want you to be on the show because you didn't show up with us last week, I guess.
It's
cool. It's not very nice,
guys,
Kelsey.
I'm back.
Well, guys, welcome to another episode of Event Masters. I'm Dylan. That's Patrick. And this is Event Masters, where every single week we talk about events. This show's all about live events, hybrid events, virtual events, in-person events, big events, small events, corporate events, music festivals, all of it. So I'm excited to this week, man. We got a really cool guest in the building, and we're talking global events. So before we do that, folks, you guys know I got to say this because if I don't ask, you don't do it, right? So make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on all social medias. They're new. Remember a couple weeks ago at joineventmasters.com or not joineventmasters.com at joineventmasters. Joineventmasters.com is coming soon though. So excited about that. Make sure you like, subscribe. Podcast is on Apple, is on Spotify, soon to be Amazon. Make sure you're downloading that. And that's out of the way. And then make sure you folks are still texting us at not 757. Good Lord, dude, it's Friday. It is really Friday. So what I meant by that is 407-214-5335. Text us in your questions, drop them in the comments. Today's all about navigating global engagement and production and all that good stuff. So we have an amazing guest today. Her name's Stephanie Jayko. She's from Knockout Productions. So let's go ahead and get her on here and get to the good stuff today.
Episode number 23.
23. Is it 23? Dude, we're flying. We're almost at the quarter decade episode.
You guys are
Stephanie,
legal to drink by a couple of years now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Finally. It was a road to get here, Stephanie. You know how long it took us to get to episode 1 and then episode 1 to 23 flew. Yeah.
Man, you guys are flying. It's been great. I've been enjoying following you guys. So congrats on 23 and thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for popping in here today. I know you are a busy human. And which is good for us event people because, good Lord, I don't know about you. It feels good to be busy again.
100%. Absolutely.
So before we get into the good stuff today and the tacticalness and all of the good stuff that we're going to talk about, I'd love to backtrack a little bit, though, and learn a little bit about you, where you came from, and then how did we get to this point today where you were talking to us on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Stephanie Jayko, CSEP. I am the owner and founder of Knockout Productions. We are a production and management firm for corporate events, doing everything from ideation and creative design all the way through execution and logistics for corporate events and all sorts of global engagement events. So that's the company. That's me. I came from, little history about me. I actually went to school for theatrical production and management. So I did all of the backstage technology and production for live theater for several years. Out of college, I worked for the Dallas Theater Center for a few years doing production management and fundraising production management for our fundraising events. Moved into the event space permanently after that and have never looked back since. Few years later, I opened Knockout, and for the last 8 years, I've been taking over the world one event at a time.
I love it. So,
and congrats on 8 years.
Thank you.
That's where exactly I was going, because most folks in this industry cannot last in their own business for that long. So major props to you. I'm just now getting over the hump of 3.5 years. So I'm with you. I am with you.
It's a feat, man. And every day is a new day. So I just thank my lucky stars that I have another one to live. So
that's right. And this industry attracts some of the coolest people on the planet. But I swear all of us are a little bit off our rocker to want to do this for a living.
It's funny you say that, because when I was in theater, someone suggested to me to go into events by way of, I said to them, if every day could be tech week, that would make my life happy. And they said, well, you're a masochist. You should do events. That's how I got into the events industry.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Pulled you in. That's cool that the technology sparked your interest in it.
Yeah. So I've always loved the backstage side of things, the tech stuff. I spent more hours in a lighting cage and scene shop in the theater in college than I probably did studying for any of my other courses. So I knew more about how to fix a light and a sound system than I did about anything else before I joined the event side of things. So
I dig it. I
yeah.
like it.
Yeah,
That's the part of most event people can't say that, actually, because like I think most event managers and stuff like that, they were good at like putting the pieces together and logistics and planning, but then there's the whole other side that is fun to me too. Like I love being backstage and just seeing everything and how lighting works and how design works and stuff. So
sure.
I love it. So let's break that down a little bit.
Totally.
So the topic of discussion today is global attendee engagement.
Yes.
So that term is maybe loosely not impacted my brain. It's really Friday. Interpreted. That's the word.
Yeah,
interpreted by different people, different things. So in your words, in your idea, what does that mean? And then we'll break it down from there.
Yeah, so global attendee engagement is something that I think it's really important, especially right now. Global attendees, meaning people from all over the world, diversity of culture and diversity of demographic is really what when I say global attendee, that's what comes to mind when I start talking about this topic, is really the expanse of cultures and demographics that we see attending any given event. Events can be global, meaning they can be meant to be a global audience, and they can go all over the place, and we can throw events all over the world. And yes, that's a global event. And yes, that's what we think of when we think, oh, we're a global events company, as we do events all over the world. But when you think about attendees, global attendee bases, right? Global demographics means in one event, no matter where it is, who's going to be there? How many different cultures do we have? How many different, ethnicities and races and cultures and languages? And, there's, especially now with virtual events being so prominent, every event has become a global event, right? We have all of these different events happening in nowhere. They're based, the computer processor is based somewhere, but the event itself is not really anywhere. We've got speakers coming in and phoning in and tuning in from 50 different countries sometimes.
Yeah.
And it really has become a global world. We are so connected in an instant now to so many people from all over the world. So, and that goes to in-person and hybrid events now too. And even before pandemic, we were seeing such high numbers with different demographics coming to so many events. And if you're in public facing events, especially, you've got tickets out there that anybody can buy. So who's to say that you don't have 100 different cultures that are going to be at your event at any given time. So when I say global attendee engagement, that's really what I mean, is being conscious of who you have in your audience.
I do like that, because I like the differentiation you made, because it's 100% true, of the like international event companies or events that say, well, yeah, we're an international company. And I'm like, because you do events in other countries, doesn't make your event international. Correct. It just makes it, if you do an event in Europe and only have Europeans come to it,
right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's a global event. Yeah.
But that's the beauty of what we can do in this world now with virtual and hybrid, and now that it's become more mainstream. So, question, just out of curiosity, before we go next, were you doing anything virtually or hybrid with your background prior to this whole rigmarole we just went through for the last year?
We did have several events prior to 2020. We had several events that had virtual components. in all honesty, they were not as robust as anything that we've seen in the last 18 months. I was lucky enough to get to work on some live broadcast events that were broadcast or simulcast to different audiences. And so I did have a little bit of a background in having that, for lack of a better term, or for the most prominent term, had a virtual audience that wasn't directly in front of us in the same geographical location. But it was, and I think this is true of everybody, we really didn't have a whole ton of need for virtual or thought for virtual, especially not in the capacity that we're seeing it now. But to that end, yeah, we did have a little bit of a virtual component. I think mostly simulcast, though. We would have an in-person event that was simulcast to different offices or different regions, so that more attendees or more viewers could be present and experience what was going on, but not necessarily engage with it, which is
Right.
kind of the cool shift that we've seen, is that the virtual component has now also included an engagement portion. So that was something for me that, again, to the engagement portion of it, like, that was huge for us, was being able to engage people all over and no matter where they were.
Absolutely. So you started with a buddy of probably a mutual friend of ours at this point, but a buddy of mine, Will Curran, says it hybrid 1.0.
Yeah.
And then we're almost in like the 1.5 stage, where it's no longer just a live stream.
Yep.
But now we've got the live stream, multiple videos, engagements, one-on-one networking. And then there's 2.0 where, like, I can be here, put a mask on, and show up at an event in England, but we won't go that far yet.
Sure. Yeah. No, I am totally a proponent of the VR aspect of things coming next, and
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm stoked for that.
That's the coolest thing.
Yeah, we've been talking about holograms here lately. It keeps coming up. So.
I just want to be able to like be in my office and then just like shoot myself into a hologram version into Patrick's 100%. Event down in Florida. Never have to leave and do 10 events in one day and then go take a nap between.
I believe it. I believe that it'll happen. I know it will. We're almost there.
We are.
And Stephanie, it's actually cool because when we actually co-founded ViewStub, Spencer, my co-founder, and I, Spencer made one of the first mission statements, bringing global experiences to, online, because for the event space, virtual, a few people did a virtual component for their events, but it was still pretty new.
Yeah.
So we actually have global in our mission statement. So
that's awesome. That's really great. I mean, I think it's so necessary, especially in this climate at where we are in the world now, is that if you're not thinking globally and you're not thinking about who may attend, who outside of your normal demographic, you're not really planning for every angle. I mean, it's inevitable that we're gonna get to a point, and not too far in the future, where every event is multicultural in its essence.
Yeah, and they already are. If you just do one in the United States, like you said it right there, when you put a public-facing event out, and I do a country concert, even when I do a country concert out here locally, you see all types of people coming in. You have to be able to manage that. So I know Patrick's got a question that he wants to ask next.
Yeah, I would say with the rise, because when the pandemic hit, so many people were like, virtual, right? Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people still have a lot of challenges just throwing regular events, right? And then on top of that, the virtual. And I think, everyone, the buzzword was kind of global. We kind of because our mission statement was global, we were like, anyone in the world can join your stream, right? It's no more just right in Florida or Texas, wherever you are. Yeah. And with the rise of that, I know a lot of people are just learning a virtual component of the event. Mm-hmm. But so the multicultural part of it, what would be some things you would say that people mistake in the planning process, or that they don't even think of, that maybe it concerns why they're doing their event, or just to overall make the engagement better?
Yeah, specifically in virtual, because it is definitely difficult to have any sort of engagement in virtual without having to add the addition of how do I engage multiple cultures and mind frames and all of that. But I think the first thing that people think of when they think, okay, multiple people, multiple cultures, multiple languages, right? So that's the first thing that I always think about is how many languages am I going to have to cater to, and what are the tools that I can find that give me the widest range of languages to convey the content in. Over the last year specifically and semi previously, a lot of digital tools started coming out that the viewer could choose their language, and you didn't have to engage an interpreter for every single language. The digital AI version of language interpretation has gotten so much better that you can plug into certain things on your content that the viewer can choose their language. You don't have to plan for every eventuality, and which is great. I will say, if you have a particular demographic that is super large, and you know that, like here in the US, we have a lot of Spanish speaking audiences, and we know that. So it's really great to make a point to have live interpreters to make sure that we're interpreting and we're translating as correctly as possible for the larger groups. If your content isn't in that native language, then how do we convey that content to our larger groups? But also, again, if we have an event that has the majority of English and Spanish speakers, but we have some French speakers and from Canada or from France or from wherever, and Mandarin is another big one. How do we plan for those eventualities that, even though they may not be the largest demographic, how can we still get to them in the easiest way for them to consume? And I think that's really what it is not necessarily about planning for every eventuality, but planning for your attendees and how do they consume content best, no matter where they're from, what language they speak, what time of day they're at, where they're and where they are geographically. Because there's a lot of people who live in a country that don't speak the language that they speak primarily, right? We've got a lot of native Spanish speakers that live here in the US, even though the primary language in the US is English. Same goes for in other countries. I know a lot of US people who live in non-English speaking countries. I have friends in China teaching English in China who their primary language and they consume best in English, but they live in a primarily Mandarin speaking location. So I think the thing to think about, and I think that is really the biggest mistake, is I need to plan for XYZ. Well, I think it's more you need to plan for your attendees and how they consume media and content.
You mean I have to focus on what my attendee wants and needs?
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah.
Asking way too much now.
I know it's crazy. And for me as a producer, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because my client is who I am catering to, right? The planner, the client, the corporate client, the end client, whoever's paying the bill is who my client is, right? And that's who I want to keep happy. But in the long run, being able to have that frank conversation with whoever the client is and saying, great, this is an awesome idea, but does this translate? Does this make sense for your attendees? Where are they going to be? Is this a 7:30 a.m. breakout session or keynote in the US, but what time is that in Azerbaijan when you've got this many people who are going to be here from there, and you've also got people in Australia who are going to come tune in? So like thinking about, okay, well, does 7:30 make the most sense? And probably, because in all of those other countries, it's halfway through the day and in the afternoon. But, there have been events that I've done where we've had to get up and do keynotes at 2:00 in the morning because 95% of our attendees are in Asia Pacific. So it makes most sense to them for us to be up in the middle of the night because the majority of our attendees are going to consume that content best at a time that makes sense for them. So that's that's how we do it. So yeah, really putting the attendees wants and needs and really making it as easy for them to consume what you're putting out there, because the biggest hurdle for any of us as event professionals is not only putting the event on, but making it impactful for the people that we are who are attending these events, right? And if we can put on the coolest thing that we think is cool, but if the attendees aren't having a good time, if they're not taking anything away and they're not feeling good about it and really diving into the information, then it's wasted time, wasted money, and why are we even doing this? So yeah, it's drilling down to who is your attendee and how do they consume what you're putting out there.
And
go for it. Go for it.
Sorry, that was a really great point, and it made me think about like the research, because like one thing that Dylan and I always talk about is like a feedback loop with time. But what would you say, or have you ever experienced any good tips around finding the data of like maybe a event organizer has a little bit of an audience in other countries but doesn't really know? It's a good way to figure that out.
Yeah, so anybody you talk to about data will tell you historical data is going to be your first best friend, right? If you've done this event before, you have the registration data, you can figure out what your trends have been year over year. You can also take similar events. You can absolutely go and do the research of, going to other planners or other production companies or platforms and ask them for the data of, how many people are coming to your events on average, and how many people are tuning in from what countries on average. There's data out there, and everybody, especially with virtual and hybrid, the data is so readily available because it has to be digital. And even before pandemic and before we went virtual on a large scale, the majority of registration was being done digitally. I can't tell you the last time I did registration via phone, mail, and paper. So I'm thinking, yeah, right.
I have a client that still has hard tickets.
Anybody who joined the events industry after like 95, like you're probably not using mail-in registration for anything. However, so there's a lot of digital information out there for you to just go and just ask around. And if you're not trying to poach attendees from something really similar, especially if you're a corporate client saying, hey, I've got this internal thing coming and I really want to know what my demographics might look like. Can you share some attendee demographic data to us? There's a lot of stuff on the internet. I mean, Google is literally my best friend. It's seriously everything I want to know is on Google. So yeah, so it's really about knowing what data points you're looking for. Is it, what time zones are we looking at? Is it what countries? Is it what languages? How many people have, ADA issues that we need to adhere to? So like, what are all of those different options? Also, there's all sorts of census information that's out there too. There's a lot of just different information that has been surveyed and is available in different reports. So if you're looking for things, again, Google, but there's a lot of like global websites that will tell you about different data analytics and data consumption analytics, not necessarily just for events, but globally and across the internet. Global is now also across the internet. If you didn't know, I just use it that way because the internet is like outer space. It exists, but not in any location because it's everywhere. Yeah. So it's a global. So yeah, there's a ton of information, and you can get super granular with it, or you can get super broad with it, depending on how you're going to use it and what you're looking to figure out. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of us have since college or high school have not had to do research projects. So a lot of us have kind of forgotten how to really get into, information mining, but it really is, there's so many different avenues and people are willing to share data if you ask nicely, and if it's not proprietary. So I'm happy to share what I have and what I know. So especially when it comes to this, because I think we can only benefit from getting this kind of information out to each other.
Absolutely. And I think data, before the event, like you're mentioning, is amazing. And then the benefit of the data after the event to go, okay, cool. I actually did what it matched the data that I had prior, because all of these new virtual event platforms and softwares are just dumping data at you.
Yeah. Even better when it doesn't match, because that's when the work really you can really do stuff with that. When the data from before to the data after, you can really look at it and say, cool, I thought this happened, and now I'm going to do this over here. So it's the linear progression of what you think, what you do, and what you're going to change. So I love, like, data is my thing. And especially when it comes to demographic data, it's so cool to see how it evolves too, and how you can evolve with it, and how you can help further that change.
Absolutely.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
I'll be so interested though, like after the event type data about data privacy and stuff like that. I'll be so curious what happens in that world.
Yeah.
We're looking at it ways.
Huge thing. And I know every client that I work with, we have extensive GDPR rules and regulations that we adhere to and everything. But to that end, it is personal info privacy. And every attendee is asked different demographics. Some of them are personal, some of them are not. And there are some data points that are generic. So while my name and address are going to be redacted from things, my ethnicity and my cultural identification may not necessarily be considered a personal piece of data. So that goes into things that would be surveyed. So that's good. And I will say this too, for anybody doing those kinds of surveys or putting those things in your registration, I suggest you put those types of questions in your registration for that data later. But also having the option for people to participate with that data or not. It is absolutely up to every individual whether they want to identify and make known that identification. But it's really up to them whether they want to participate in that kind of data or not. But I would absolutely suggest giving them the option to answer every demographic question possible. They can answer the ones they want, they can answer the ones they don't, and then at least you have the potential of getting as much data as possible.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah. So I want to touch on
surveys.
Feedback loop. People, how many times have we? It's pre
and post.
That's an interesting way to put it, because most people think of surveys as post.
Absolutely.
But you are doing a pre-survey when you have a registration form and when you're checking things out. I.e. using custom questions I've used up. I don't know. But anyways, so moving on, humble plug. But
shameless plug.
You touched on something that is what I want to wrap this up on. And it's been, and when I knew the topic, I knew exactly what I was going to end this show, is because there's a principle of an event master. So I've been saying here lately, event prof is a job title, event master is a mindset, right? Mm-hmm. That mindset is made up of right now 13 different principles. Mm-hmm. And the one that we have touched on the most today is be attendee centric. Yes. So it's that at the end of the day, your client matters, sponsors matter, speakers matter, but none of that matters more than the attendees and how they engage and how they experience your event. And so that's what I wanted to make sure, like, you're living proof of that. And that's one of the literal principles of being an event master. And that's what this whole show is about, is more about the principles behind things she's saying, more so than just the, like, make sure you put that custom question on your registration. It's about the principles that are coming out of this, and me understanding that the data allows you to be more attendee centric.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the only thing that matters.
Absolutely.
So great. Awesome. Amazing. So I have one last question and then we will let you go. Actually, I have two. I have a couple. Sorry.
So mainly the three.
My apologies. It could be 10.
We'll be here all day. It's fine.
One is, if you have one thing, I always like to do the cold cliche. If you have one thing that you could pass off to any event prof who's looking to become an event master, what's that one tip, trick, strategy philosophy that you live by that has gotten you where you're at?
Never stop learning. You
I like
don't know
that.
it. You don't know
Word.
everything. You never will. It changes so fast. Like there is always something new to learn because the world changes. So events change. So always keep learning, keep open, and seek out those learning opportunities because you can only better yourself for it.
That is number 6. I love it.
I'm
So
going to
we
be an
just
event
knocked off
master
2.
yet.
I got some ideas. We're going to chat a little later on. And then the last one is, I know you're working on some cool projects. I know you're working on a cool project and you're affiliated with one of our partners and good friends over at the Search Foundation. So I know you have something coming up here. I want to give you the floor to not only promote that and talk about what you're doing there and maybe touch on the Search Foundation if you want, because we've touched on it with Thomas, but we want to bring it back. And then where can we find you and what can we do to learn more about you? And then
Absolutely.
I'll let you go. I have nothing else out.
Perfect. So the Search Foundation is a charitable organization for event professionals by event professionals. We raise funds for events and hospitality professionals in personal crisis. So the foundation itself goes to all sorts of different conferences and different events, and we partner with a lot of different industry associations throughout the year to raise funds for grant distribution to different individuals in our industry that have personal crisis. So I am, like you said, on the board, and you've talked to a couple of my board members previously before, and we love this foundation so dearly because it is really it is us helping our community and being there for the people that we love and the industry that we love. So we do have a really great and fun event coming up. One of our signature events that we do every year in conjunction with TSE Cater Source. This year we are in Miami. The date for the event itself, the fundraising event, is Wednesday, July 21st. At the Miami Design District. So if you happen to be down in Miami on the 21st of July and want to come support the Search Foundation, we would love to have you. It's going to be a really great night. We've got a little Havana theme kind of going on. So come on out. And it's going to be one of the more fun things I'm doing this summer because I actually get to finally see some of my event prof friends in person again.
Finally.
We'll be actually in person and in the same space with air fives and elbow taps and hugs for those people who are comfortable with it. So, but yes, if anybody is interested in more information on the Search Foundation, I highly, highly suggest checking them out on the web. You can always get in touch with me. I'm happy to give you more information, but they're a great foundation that is doing great things for our industry. So, and to that end, as far as where you can find me, I am on all of the socials, Knockout Productions. I think on Instagram, it's knock_out_productions. So the underscores always trip everyone up. But I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Knockout Productions, Stephanie Jayko, CSEP. And if you want to get in touch directly, you can email me at info@knockout.productions.
I love it. We're going to work on buying the @ on Instagram for you.
Love it.
Well, Stephanie, I very much appreciate it. You popping in here today. This is a hot topic and one that I know we could spend 4 more hours talking.
100%.
A lot of
There's
people
so
think
much
about
out
it.
there for it.
I'm excited to really, as now that we have all now officially, I guess, met.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do some more stuff with you guys, and as you said, you are a living proof of what the Event Masters is and what we represent here. So I'm excited to now be in your world a little bit more instead of just seeing your name all over social media.
You'll have to come be on our talk show next.
So you have one with you and Thomas, right?
Thomas and I have. It's called With Regrets. Yeah, come on over and have some fun with us. It's more of a tell us your craziest stories idea. So
I got some.
That's perfect.
We all do. That's the whole thing is we all have a few. So
Yeah.
come on over and have a fun chat with us, and we'd love to have you.
100% I will do that. I love Thomas, and now that I've met you, you are great people, so I would be happy to just come on and talk about all the things I've ever messed up in my life.
I love that.
Events.
Yeah, you are in good company.
We can jam.
Love
So
it.
once again, very much thank you. This was another episode of Event Masters. What was it, Patrick? 23? 23. Cool. So guys, just a little housekeeping at the end. Once again, keep in mind, we do have our first ever pop-up event on August 3rd, 4th, and 5th, Mastering the Event Business, all about how to grow and scale the actual business of your events and your clients and things like that. It's one thing to have a skill of how to put on an event. It's another to be in business for 8 years like this lady right here. So we're bringing together some of the biggest and baddest event profs who are business owners to talk about the business side of things. So August 3rd, we will drop the link in the comments for you guys. We will drop all the links for Stephanie herself and Knockout Productions, as well as the podcast she's got, as well as that search event. And with that being said, my friends, Patrick, any last words?
No, that was a great one. I wish we had more time.
Likewise. We will have to bring her back. Do you mind coming back at another date?
Anytime. You let me know.
Got it.
We'll talk her into joining the community.
Hey, there you go.
We'll get her in there. All right. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys next week. This was another episode. It was fun. See you guys.